stood up a $1.3 billion Obama-era fraud against the taxpayers. The more they dig, the more they'll find. This country could run on $20 billion a year. It's the low-lives from third-world cultures who are robbing America blind. And they've embedded themselves in our government. On Thursday morning press conference, Attorney General Jeff Sessions and Secretary of Health and Human Services Tom Price announced that 412 people around the country have been charged with participating in healthcare fraud scams totaling about $1.3 billion in false billings, including for the prescription and distribution of opioids. Facing charges in what federal officials Thursday called the largest ever healthcare fraud enforcement action by the Medicare Fraud Strike Force, are 412 people across 41 federal districts, who the DOJ alleges have extracted $1.3 billion in false billings through a variety of unconnected schemes. The defendants include 115 doctors, nurses, and other licensed medical professionals. They were arrested in a nationwide operation that involved more than 1,000 law enforcement agents in at least 30 states. HHS has also initiated suspension proceedings against 295 providers, including doctors, nurses, and pharmacists. Attorney General Jeff Sessions said at a news conference, "Too many trusted medical professionals like doctors, nurses, and pharmacists have chosen to violate their oaths and put greed ahead of their patients. Amazingly, some have made their practices into multi-million-dollar criminal enterprises. They seem oblivious to the disastrous consequences of their greed. Their actions not only enrich themselves often at the expense of taxpayers but also feed addictions and cause addictions to start. The consequences are real: emergency rooms, jail cells, futures lost, and graveyards. One American dies of a drug overdose every 11 minutes and more than 2 million Americans are ensnared in addiction to prescription painkillers. We will continue to find, arrest, prosecute, convict and incarcerate fraudsters and drug dealers wherever they are," Sessions added. Healthcare fraud is a persistent problem for the federal health insurance systems. Secretary of Health and Human Services Tom Price said, "Healthcare fraud is not only a criminal act that costs billions of taxpayer dollars, it is an affront to all Americans who rely on our national healthcare programs for access to critical healthcare services and a violation of trust. The United States is home to the world's best medical professionals, but their ability to provide affordable, high-quality care to their patients is jeopardized every time a criminal commits healthcare fraud." He added, "That is why this administration is committed to bringing these criminals to justice, as President Trump demonstrated in his 2017 budget request calling for a new $70 million investment in the healthcare fraud and abuse control program. Great. It's a step in the right direction. It's definitely time to put these parasites in jail. Bring back the rule of law and the consequences for breaking it, and the country will only benefit from it. I'm glad these arrests happened in the war on drugs and the war on fraud, waste and abuse in the federal health programs. This is what the Democrats and the Republican establishment were afraid of. Trump enforcing the rule of law and order. This is great news. Major kudos to the dedicated federal workers who did the legwork. If we could bring all the fraud in medical care to an end, we might actually be able to afford it." Thank you for watching. What do you think about this?